In 1912, deep in Egypt's western desert, about 200 miles southwest of Cairo, an Austrian fossil collector named Richard Markgraf was sifting through ancient rock in the Bahariya Formation. He was working for a German paleontologist named Ernst Stromer, searching for anything that might rewrite the story of prehistoric life. And what he pulled from the earth stopped him cold. Vertebrae, massive ones. These were not like any dinosaur bones anyone had seen before. Jutting from each vertebra was a spine, a neural spine, impossibly tall. The longest one measured over 5 feet. At first, Stromer assumed he was looking at some kind of sail-backed reptile, maybe something related to the ancient Paleosaurs that came before the dinosaurs. But the teeth were wrong. The jaw fragments were wrong. This was something else entirely. When Stromer published his findings in 1915, he named the creature Spinosaurus aegyptiacus, the Egyptian spine lizard. He noted that the jaw looked almost crocodilian, with cone-shaped teeth that did not match any predatory dinosaur he knew. He even theorized that those massive spines might have supported a fatty hump, like a bison. But here is the thing. Stromer did not have limbs. He did not have a complete skull. He was working with fragments, making educated guesses about an animal unlike anything in the fossil record. And then, 30 years later, everything he found was destroyed. By the 1940s, Stromer's fossils were housed in the Paleontologisches Museum in Munich. World War II was escalating. Allied bombers were flattening German cities. Stromer knew what was coming. He begged the museum director, a Nazi-affiliated paleontologist named Karl Berlin, to evacuate the specimens, move them to caves, salt mines, anywhere safe. Other German institutions were already doing this with their treasures. Berlin refused. He believed Nazi propaganda that the Luftwaffe would protect German cities from meaningful damage. On the night of April 24th, 1944, a British Royal Air Force bombing raid hit Munich. The museum was destroyed. Every single Spinosaurus fossil burned, gone, reduced to ash. Along with them went Egyptosaurus, Bahariasaurus, and Carcharodontosaurus material, entire dinosaurs erased in a single night. Stromer had already lost 2 of his 3 sons on the Eastern Front. The third was imprisoned in Soviet labor camps and would not be released until 1950. He died in 1952, having never found another Spinosaurus. All that survived were his drawings, his notes, and a handful of photographs. For the next 50 years, that is all anyone had to work with. From the 1950s through the 1980s, no one actually knew what Spinosaurus looked like. The original fossils were ash. No complete Spinosaurid skeleton existed anywhere in the world. Artists and scientists had to build reconstructions entirely from Stromer's drawings and pure speculation. They drew it like they knew. They did not. The influential 1955 reconstruction by Albert Félix de Lapparent and René Lavocat depicted Spinosaurus as essentially a T-Rex with a sail strapped to its back. Deep skull, bone-crushing jaws, 4-fingered hands. None of that was accurate, but it looked dramatic, so it stuck. For decades, every dinosaur book showed this image, a generic sail-backed theropod standing in that awkward tripod kangaroo pose that pre-dinosaur Renaissance artwork loved so much. Then, in 1986, something changed. Paleontologists Alan Charig and Angela Milner discovered Baryonyx walkeri in England. It was a Spinosaurid with an actual skull. That skull looked nothing like a T-Rex. It was long, crocodilian, and filled with straight, conical teeth that were not serrated. The teeth were designed for gripping slippery fish, not tearing flesh. Suddenly, all those decades of T-Rex with a sail illustrations looked embarrassingly wrong. Spinosaurus itself still had not been found again. The mystery continued. And then there is Nizar Ibrahim, who refused to let it die. Ibrahim is German-Moroccan, born in West Berlin in 1982. He earned a PhD from University College Dublin. He did postdoctoral work at the University of Chicago. He had an obsession with Spinosaurus that bordered on the fanatical. In March 2013, Ibrahim did something that sounds like it belongs in an Indiana Jones movie. He traced Moroccan fossil dealer networks to locate a local hunter who had sold significant Spinosaurid material years earlier. As Ibrahim later described it, it was like searching for a needle in a desert. That was the moment Spinosaurus stopped being a rumor and became a problem. On September 11th, 2014, Ibrahim's team published their findings in Science. The paper was titled Semi-Aquatic Adaptations in a Giant Predatory Dinosaur. The specimen, designated FSACK K11888, came from Morocco's Kem beds. Roughly 95 to 100 million years old. And it included something Stromer never had: limbs. The results were shocking. Spinosaurus had disproportionately short hind limbs, shorter than any other large theropod. The bones were dense and solid, with no open medullary cavities, which the team interpreted as ballast for swimming. The center of mass sat forward, which some suggested might indicate quadrupedal posture on land. And the total body length exceeded 15 meters. That is longer than T-Rex by over 9 feet. Ibrahim told reporters that working on this animal was like studying an alien from outer space. It was unlike any other dinosaur he had ever seen. But not everyone was convinced. Almost immediately, other paleontologists started asking uncomfortable questions. Was this specimen actually from a single individual? Or was it a chimera, multiple animals accidentally combined into one creature? The argument started immediately, and it did not stay polite. In 2018, Ibrahim's team went back to the same Moroccan site. They found the tail, the first Spinosaurus tail ever discovered. And it was unlike anything anyone expected. The results were published in Nature on April 29th, 2020. Approximately 80% of the tail was preserved. Neural spines exceeded 1 meter in height. Elongated chevrons lay beneath. Interlocking joints between vertebrae were reduced. What the team described was essentially a giant paddle, a large, flexible, fin-like organ capable of extensive lateral excursion. Harvard researchers Stephanie Pierce and George Lauder tested 3D printed models of the tail in a robotic apparatus. The Spinosaurus tail generated 8 times more thrust than typical theropod tails. It achieved 2.5 times greater propulsive efficiency, a performance comparable to crocodiles and newts. Ibrahim declared that it was basically a river monster. The team proposed that Spinosaurus was an active and highly specialized aquatic predator that pursued and caught its prey in the water column. The team estimated underwater cruising speeds exceeding 5 miles per hour. It was portrayed as a dinosaur that hunted like a sea lion. It was the kind of paper that makes museums quietly panic. And then the objections started. Then came the teardown, line by line. The scientific pushback came fast. Donald Henderson at the Royal Tyrrell Museum had already built 3-dimensional digital models to test Spinosaurus buoyancy. His 2018 conclusion was brutal. He called the animal unsinkable. Even with lungs deflated by 75%, it would float. It was laterally unstable. It would roll onto its side. It could bob in water with its head clear, but it could not dive. Then came David Hone and Thomas Holtz with a comprehensive 2021 critique. They went straight for the weak points. That sail added about 33% additional drag when submerged. No pursuit swimmer in evolutionary history has anything comparable. Those unreduced limbs were drag machines. Real pursuit swimmers minimize appendage surface area. That long, S-curved neck looks like a heron neck. Sea lions do not have that. Hone and Holtz suggested an alternative for the tail, socio-sexual display, similar to structures seen in basilisk lizards that are not used for swimming. their conclusion landed hard. They wrote that the pursuit-predation hypothesis for Spinosaurus as a highly specialized aquatic predator is not supported. Holtz put it memorably. Spinosaurus was probably a better swimmer than a polar bear, but not a sea lion. This is the moment where the Spinosaurus story stops being a discovery and turns into a scientific knife fight. In November 2022, Paul Sereno, who had been a co-author on the original 2014 paper, published a full rebuttal in eLife. Using computed tomography-based skeletal reconstruction, Sereno's team found that Ibrahim's earlier reconstructions contained significant errors. The presacral column, ribcage depth, forelimb length were all overestimated. Some measurements were off by as much as 30%. The revised numbers told a different story. Adult length was approximately 14 meters. Body mass was around 7,400 kilograms. But the physics would not cooperate. On paper, this animal behaves less like a diver and more like a loaded raft. When Sereno ran the diving calculations, the gap was not small. It was not even close. The force required to fully submerge Spinosaurus was approximately 17,000 newtons. Maximum tail thrust was only about 700 newtons. That is not a shortfall. That is a fantasy. The tail was powerful, but nowhere near powerful enough to push this animal underwater against its own buoyancy. Swimming speed, fast enough to move, was not fast enough to chase. And the center of mass was positioned over the hip joint, supporting a bipedal stance. The quadrupedal hypothesis from 2014 was essentially dead. Sereno now describes Spinosaurus as a semi-aquatic bipedal ambush piscivore that frequented the margins of coastal and inland waterways. Translation: a 7-ton heron from hell. In March 2024, Nathan Meyervold and colleagues published another critique in PLOS 1, this time challenging the bone density analysis that had been used to support diving behavior. They argued that bone density does not mean it was a diver. Elephants have similarly dense bones. No one thinks elephants are aquatic pursuit predators. Dense bones can serve weight support just as easily as they can serve buoyancy control. The evidence was more ambiguous than many had acknowledged. Meyervold posed the question perfectly. Was it a fast swimming predator that chased fish like a sea lion? Or was it an ambush predator at the water's edge, grasping with its clawed hands like a giant brown bear chasing salmon? Or plunging its head into water like a 7-ton heron from hell? That phrase keeps coming up. Heron from hell. And honestly, it might be accurate. Forget the camps for a second. What do the bones actually give us? Spinosaurus was big. Total length was between 12 and 14 meters, with some estimates pushing toward 15 meters for the largest individuals. Body mass was around 7.5 tons maximum. Hip height was only about 2 to 2.5 meters, shorter than T-Rex, which stood close to 4 meters. But nose to tail, Spinosaurus was longer, and T-Rex was likely heavier. The specimen, nicknamed Scotty, weighed somewhere between 9 and 11 tons. So when people say Spinosaurus was bigger than T-Rex, they mean longer, not more massive. That distinction matters when you are trying to figure out what this animal could actually do. The skull was gharial-like, long, narrow, and laterally compressed. The teeth were straight, conical, and unserrated. Fish catchers designed to grip and hold. The tip of the snout formed a terminal rosette of enlarged teeth that created an interlocking trap. No one disputes the fish-eating part. The skull is a fishing tool. The question is how that tool was used. The nostrils were retracted near the middle of the skull, genuinely unusual for a theropod. That placement means the snout could be submerged while the animal still breathed. That single detail is why some researchers insist it had to be aquatic. No land predator needs nostrils positioned like that. Computed tomography scanning revealed over 100 neurovascular foramina on the snout surface, connected to complex nerve networks. The interpretation was pressure sensors, like crocodilians use to detect movement in murky water. But the debate persists because a 2017 study found similar structures in Neovenator, a completely terrestrial theropod. So either pressure sensing is not exclusively aquatic, or we do not understand these structures as well as we think. Then there is the sail. Current consensus favors a display structure rather than a hump. The neural spines have sharp edges and signs of poor blood flow, consistent with skin-covered structures like those on basilisk lizards. The sail reads like a billboard, something meant to be seen, not to heat or store energy. Which means the most dramatic feature of Spinosaurus, that iconic sail, might have had nothing to do with swimming at all. To understand Spinosaurus, you have to understand its world. Step back about 95 to 100 million years into the Cenomanian stage of the Cretaceous period. What is now Morocco and Egypt was a massive river delta system with tidal channels, swamps, lagoons, and backwaters. Imagine the Australian Northern Territory or Bangladesh's Sundarbans, except mangroves had not evolved yet. North Africa was fragmented by the Tethys Sea, and the climate was warm and humid with seasonal flooding. Vegetation included marine-adapted ferns and algal reefs, and the predators. The Kem fauna is famous for one disturbing fact. At least 4 large-bodied theropods lived there simultaneously. Spinosaurus reached 14 meters and was a semi-aquatic piscivore. Carcharodontosaurus reached 12 to 13 meters, a terrestrial apex predator with 20-centimeter blade like serrated teeth. Deltadromeus measured about 8 meters, swift, and cursorial. There was also an unnamed abelisaurid of around 6 meters. 4 giant meat-eaters, 1 ecosystem. How did they coexist? Probably through niche partitioning. Carcharodontosaurus hunted land animals with teeth designed for tearing flesh. Spinosaurus hunted fish with teeth designed for gripping. Different menus, same neighborhood, and the fish were worth hunting. Onchopristis was a giant saw skate reaching 4 to 5 meters, with a rostrum covered in barbed denticles. Direct evidence links this prey to Spinosaurus. An Onchopristis vertebra was found associated with Spinosaurus jaws, and a rostral barb was found embedded in a Spinosaurid upper jaw. Mawsonia was a giant coelacanth, reaching 3.5 to over 5 meters, among the largest coelacanths ever. There were also lungfish, Argonodus, and Ceratodus. Some paleontologists have hypothesized that Spinosaurus may have dug for buried lungfish with its robust forelimbs. The isotope evidence supports this picture. A 2010 study by Amiot and colleagues, published in the journal Geology, analyzed oxygen isotopes in Spinosaurid teeth. The results showed ratios closer to turtles and crocodilians than to other theropods, indicating significant time spent in aquatic environments. But some specimens showed more terrestrial signatures: dietary flexibility, opportunism. Spinosaurus ate fish, but when opportunity presented itself, it probably ate other things too. We need to talk about Jurassic Park 3. In 2001, that film introduced Spinosaurus to mass audiences. It depicted the animal as an apex superpredator that defeats T-Rex by snapping its neck. This was, and remains, scientifically ridiculous, even by 2001 standards. By 2001, baryonyx had already revealed what Spinosaurid skulls looked like: long, crocodilian, designed for fish, not combat. Jack Horner, the film's paleontological consultant, has acknowledged knowing this. Making Spinosaurus a T-Rex killer was a deliberate narrative choice, not a scientific one. Here is what the movie got wrong. T-Rex and Spinosaurus never coexisted. They were separated by roughly 30 million years and lived on different continents. T-Rex's bite force has been estimated at approximately 12,800 pounds per square inch. Spinosaurus, around 4,200 pounds per square inch. That is not a close fight. Most paleontologists believe a hypothetical encounter would favor T-Rex decisively. The bite mechanics are not even comparable. But the film planted something in popular imagination. The idea that Spinosaurus was larger than T-Rex. This claim persists, and it is technically accurate by length, 14 to 15 meters versus 12 to 13 meters. But it is misleading. T-Rex was heavier. T-Rex was taller at the hip. T-Rex was more robustly built overall. Spinosaurus was the longest carnivorous dinosaur we know of. Not necessarily the most massive, not necessarily the most dangerous, just the longest. So we are left with two Spinosauruses, two competing visions of the same animal. The aquatic pursuit predator model, supported by Ibrahim, Fabry, and Pierce, argues that Spinosaurus was a specialized underwater hunter. Evidence includes dense bones similar to penguins and manatees, interpreted as ballast for buoyancy control. A paddle-like tail with demonstrated thrust in robotic tests, retracted nostrils, possible pressure sensors, and flat-bottomed pedal claws, consistent with soft substrate locomotion. The wading ambush predator model, supported by Serino, Hone, Holtz, and Henderson, argues that Spinosaurus was an heron-like predator. Evidence includes buoyancy calculations showing it could not dive, digital models that show stability problems, a sail that creates 33% additional drag when submerged, unreduced limbs that are incompatible with swimming specialization. Modern analogs, such as herons, storks, and shoebills, demonstrate successful fishing from shorelines. Here is what both sides agree on. Spinosaurus was primarily piscivorous. Spinosaurus had more aquatic adaptations than any other large theropod. Spinosaurus spent significant time near or in water. Spinosaurus had genuinely retracted nostrils as an aquatic adaptation. Spinosaurus was bipedal on land. The quadrupedal hypothesis has been largely abandoned. The question is not whether Spinosaurus was aquatic. The question is how aquatic. Was it a pursuit predator, chasing fish through the water column? Or was it a giant wading bird, stabbing prey from the shallows? Unless someone finds a cleaner skeleton, this stays unresolved. Ernst Stromer, back in 1915, wrote that Spinosaurus was a highly specialized form. He was right. He just could not have known how right. This animal has been reconstructed from tragedy, controversy, and fragmentary evidence scattered across 3 continents. It was discovered, destroyed, forgotten, and rediscovered. It has been drawn wrong for decades, filmed wrong for millions of viewers, and debated intensely by the world's leading paleontologists. And still, after more than a century, we do not fully understand it. That is not a failure of science. That is what makes science honest. The pursuit predator hypothesis offers a thrilling vision. An underwater dinosaur hunter, propelling itself through ancient rivers with a paddle tail, chasing fish like nothing evolution had ever produced before. The wading model offers something more mechanically plausible. A 7-ton heron from hell, standing in the shallows, using that long crocodilian snout to snatch prey with surgical precision. Both camps agree on one thing. Nothing about Spinosaurus was normal. Future discoveries, particularly a complete skeleton from a single verified individual, may resolve these questions. Until then, Spinosaurus remains what it has been for over a century. Paleontology's most mysterious giant. Perpetually reconstructed, never fully understood, and still waiting to be found. Again. Thanks for watching. And until next time, on Dead Curious.